What is up, everyone? Welcome to Survivor Now podcast. Today, Nina and I are talking to the ninth castaway to be eliminated from Survivor Australia Titans vs. Rebels. We're talking to Charles. Charles, that was an interesting episode to watch. A lot happened. How are you doing? What was your viewing experience like of it?
I'm fine, thank you. The viewing experience was actually a really strange one. I've reflected on that night at Tribal for the past 6 months since we did filming, and I've thought about it a lot. And I wasn't sure how I'd find the actual viewing experience, but actually found it really enjoyable, albeit very frustrating as well. Seeing myself in some of those tricky situations, but in large part, I think it was really cool watching myself back in that final Tribal.
Totally. Did you get to experience it with family?
I just watched it with my wife, and
Oh,
my wife kind of was fuming at various points at the twist and how it all played out. But it was nice to have her there supporting me. I thought about watching it with a wider group of friends or family, but didn't want to distract from the actual main event on the screen.
Yeah, I can completely understand that because people start asking so many questions and you can't even focus on what's happening. You're like, wait, there's
Totally,
a lot of things here. I don't know, guys. Give me a second. Let me
exactly,
process this. But
exactly.
something I want to know pre-swap, just towards the beginning, we got a lot of the middle-aged mafia, the V's, Nate, all this and that. I really want to know, where was your alliance? Who were you aligned with? Who did you want to align with? What was that for you?
Yeah, so with the middle-aged mafia, the V's, and the cool kids, I feel like in the edit at least, I just disappeared for quite a little while, to the point where I think there's a couple of episodes where they're counting votes on both sides, and just no one mentions my name. But so I mean, early on, I built very strong ties with Eden. Eden and I are both dads to young children, so we got along really, really well from the outset. And our alliance wasn't something that was, or our bond wasn't something that kind of constantly needed to be reinforced.
mhm.
We both spoke about the fact that we didn't want to be seen to be too close together because that could be perceived as a threat. So, every day or so, we just had a very brief check in. Sometimes it was 30 seconds, a minute, or very late at night as well. And we'd kind of say, how are you feeling about things? Do you trust this person? Do you trust that person? And we'd kind of just be very, very brief and kind of break and then go back to normal island life. But so Eden and I were very close. I also formed a very strong bond with Caroline early on, and she expressed some trust in me when she started to talk about Mark, and throw Mark's name out, and kind of see how I'd react to that. So I was very tight with Caroline as well. And then very early on, I think it was day one or day two, there's a discussion where Frankie, Nathan, and I are at the well. And we're talking about potential alliances and potential names that we could throw out at the first OG Titans vote. And they gave me a few names that I used to my advantage to build some pretty strong social ties on day one and day two. So one of those names that they threw out was Mark, and me and Mark had, up until that point, had a couple of genuine discussions, and me and Mark are kind of same age, and got along really well. Although with Mark being Mark, and crafty, I didn't necessarily trust him all that much. But I told him at that point very early on, look, Frankie and Nathan have thrown your name out. It's on a short list of names. We expressed the view that we'd share information like this with each other. So don't get too worried about it. I don't think it's going to land, but your name's been thrown out. And the exact same with Viola as well. So Viola was on the short list of people that they were gunning for, and I took the opportunity to let Viola know, and she really appreciated it too. And made clear to me that she'd do the same for me in a heartbeat. So I did trust all of those people, and we kind of had a pretty comfortable alliance of, I think it was 7. But yeah, obviously, with the storyline they've been running with, there's middle-aged mafia, the V's and Mark, and they definitely were alliances. But I think it kind of it doesn't necessarily emphasize that there was an alliance of 7 and very strong bonds that had formed amongst different people.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it did seem like you were in a very good position throughout your time in the game. In fact, I think that you voted correctly every single tribal council and then didn't have a vote in the tribal council that you were the one who was eliminated.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
you
exactly.
made it to the tribe swap, and I was wondering. Actually, this is from this is a fan question that was submitted. How much intel were you given about the Kirby and Ferris feud when you swapped tribes?
Intel from Kirby and Ferris is kind of the extent of it. I was given no other intel from many other people at all. Obviously, people on different sides were kind of like, you can't trust Kirby, you can't trust Ferris. And yeah, we just had to kind of work with what we had and decide for ourselves whether Kirby was trustworthy and whether Ferris was trustworthy. So we didn't have intel as such, but I kind of played that part of the game like I played the start of my game, which was, form trust with people through building really strong social connections. After all, Survivor's a massive, essentially a social game in my view, considering how much time you're spending with each other and that, everything's built on trust realistically. And so we kind of built those connections with both sides, and we were in the position where we had a choice of who to go with, and we made that choice pretty early on, and we made it clear to Kirby and her alliance that we wanted to work with them, but that we needed to make clear to Ferris and Co that we were working with them as well. And that was actually a really delicate dance to undertake, or really fine line to walk, because the obvious thing for the OG rebels to do, which Eileen tried to gun for constantly with little success, was to band together and vote one of us out. And in fact, Garrick straight up said that to Winner at the start. He was like, sorry mate, but you guys are on the chopping block because it doesn't make sense for us to turn on ourselves or turn on each other. So yeah, and that's kind of how it went. Ferris was obviously, saying that we couldn't trust Kirby at all and that she'd flipped on her previous alliances, but realistically, it just made more sense to align with another 3, and then some of the personalities in Ferris's alliance, like Ferris and Garrick, were very tight and they'd exclude everyone else from their conversations, including Ray and Eileen, and then Eileen constantly gunning for me, and after having what I thought were pretty sincere conversations to my face, it made me think that they weren't an alliance that I could work with in the long run.
Can I ask, considering you did bring up Ferris and Garrick and how they would have a lot of conversations and kind of exclude people, watching last night's episode when you guys kind of said, Eileen, can you just give us another minute, another, few seconds? Like looking back, I have actually done that myself. Looking back on it, how did you feel about that? What did you think when you watched it?
Yeah, so that was before. The game that I played from the outset was very open, very direct, but very calculated as well. So everyone knew what I thought about them because I'd express it to them. Eileen knew at that stage that her name was in the mix, and she wanted to have a discussion, and there was limited time to have that discussion. But we needed on our side to kind of set in stone what the plan was. And I mean, I think when Eileen came to us and said, can we have a chat, or tried to join in, I think I kind of quite respectfully said, can you just give us another couple of minutes and I'll come and chat to you at the well, as opposed to what other people did, like Kirby, who just had a different style when Eileen came to her and said, can we have a chat? And she said no. So I think I was tactful, but I couldn't please everyone. And when you're in those moments and you have limited time, the last thing you want is for your alliance to go into tribal with an uncertainty over what the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
You need to set that plan in stone and then kind of make plans A, B, and C if stuff goes down. But I did have, like, shortly afterwards, I left the rest of the group and had that discussion with Eileen. So I don't think she would have had any ill will towards me about that.
Yeah. Your relationship with Eileen was very the story arc that we went on as an audience during the episode was so interesting. I mean, you and Val both tried to like assess Eileen's trust, if you could trust her moving forward in the game, if you were to keep her over Ferris. Were you and Val very serious about this in the moment of trying to work with Eileen in the future?
Yeah, so I had been burnt by Eileen a bunch of times before. Val hadn't. And so, I mean, in the game of Survivor, and as I said on at last night's tribal, you have to be open to any situation and working with anyone. So, but the thing was that since we all kind of came together as the new Titans, it was literally from day one. Eileen would say stuff to me like, Charles, I think you should keep an open mind. Even if you end up working with these guys, maybe you can work with me, on the side, or we can have a little secret alliance, or we just need to play this smart. I see you as a logical person. I see you as an analytical person. I feel like I'm the same. And then, like, literally, an hour later, because I had so many connections with a whole range of people, even on this new Titans tribe, people would come to me from all sides of the alliance, or all sides of alliances, and say, just heads up, Eileen is just, made a run at you. She's thrown your name out. But that happened like probably 3 or 4 times, separate occasions, in the run up to that final discussion at the well. But the difference with the discussion at the well was that Ferris would be gone. And so she was in a very, or hopefully Ferris would be gone if Eileen was still there. And so she would be in a very precarious position, and it made sense for her to work with us going forward. But, it wasn't the case. And when she had that discussion with us, and I thought it was quite genuine, and I expressed the view that I felt a little bit bad that she was in an alliance where Ferris just seemed to be calling the shots by intimidation and not really having regard to the game that she wanted to play. I thought maybe we might be making progress, but then, lo and behold, at Tribal, in front of everyone, she's just like, hey, everyone, let's band together and vote one of the OG Titans. And it's like, well, did we not have this conversation an hour ago? But maybe I should have learned from my previous experiences with her that she definitely said one thing and then did another.
So considering that she was so willing to throw out other names, when it came down to the three of you in the edit, it kind of just shows you guys just saying, I know it's going to be one of us three. Like, that's it. Why did no one, if no one, throw out Scott, Kelly, Raymond? Like, they can get votes too. It felt kind of like what was shown was you guys just saying, it is going to be one of us three. Of course, Winna trying to take the heat off of you guys, come up with something else. No one threw out anyone else's names. Why is that?
Yeah, so well, in terms of the OG Rebels and the OG Titans, they made it very, very clear, and I think that probably didn't come through necessarily as much during the final cut last night. They just made it very clear that it was me, Val, or Winner that were on the chopping block. They basically said to us multiple times, it's going to be an OG Titan. This is something that we want, and the others are kind of sitting pretty and don't have to worry about things much at all. And then perhaps if Winner didn't have the game plan or the I don't want to. Anyway, whatever it was, what Winner did in terms of trying to land votes on him, the strategy, the last ditch attempt to get 2 votes on him and play his idol. If he didn't have that kind of plan of attack, maybe things would have been a little bit more chaotic with the guns turning on each other. But we didn't know at that point early on anyway that they were going to split the vote. And then there was a point during the tribal that it became pretty clear to me at least that the vote was going to be split. And so it was just a matter of whether the vote would be on Winner and Val or Winner and me.
I will say, if we ever get the opportunity to talk to Winna, I have a lot of questions about his whole idol plan at this tribal council. I mean, this was a very interesting and unique tribal. To walk us through this, Charles, in an alternate timeline, if there was not that twist of going to play in another challenge so that 3 people can earn the right to vote, who was going to go home?
Well, it all came down to whether Ferris would play his idol or not. So Ferris played his idol, and mind you, we saw with Eileen hair up, Eileen hair down, that she had a pretty strong view that Ferris had an idol, regardless of whether she'd seen it or not. But we thought that he had an idol. He was telling everyone he had an idol, and it's Ferris. So, like, he probably had an idol. So it would have been likely that Eileen would have gone home, and Ferris would have played his idol. That being said, I mean, Ferris, he said last night that he was considering not playing his idol. And he can be like that sometimes. Like, he thinks, just luck is kind of in his favor, and that he doesn't need to take precautionary steps. And I think that's probably what makes him such a entertaining person to watch play the game. Like, he just kind of shoots from the hip, and doesn't care what people think. And I said a couple of things last night in tribal, and people were like, oh, gee, in hindsight, should Charles have said that? And it's kind of like, well, the one time that I say something, and I don't know that there's going to be a twist, and I think, like, I thought at the time that things were set in stone, things kind of just go against me. But anyway, I mean, who knows?
Hindsight is always 2020.
Totally, exactly.
It was almost like it was a repeat of what happened with Ferris and Garrick at the tribal council before, where they were saying, Ferris, play your idol on Garrick, the votes are on him. And here we had Kirby being like, hey, play the idol on Charles, Winna, the votes are going to be on him. Was there anything were you saying anything to Winna to try to make that happen so that you would be safe?
Not really. I know that if I was in Winner's position, that I would have played that idol for myself. There's no doubt about it. And especially after he's literally saying to the guys, Ferris is asking him straight up, could the OG Titans work with us long term? I'm saying, yeah, of course, it's Survivor. And, Winner turns around and says, like, oh, no, I don't think I can work with you. Like alarm bells. But I think having that plan of attack that Winner had, and that strategy of trying to get 2 votes onto him, he was always going to play his idol, and it didn't make much sense for him to play an idol for someone else. And then when it became clear that Winner was going to get at least 1 vote, and there was a potential for a revote, I mean, yeah, I would have loved for Winner to have played his idol for me. But the reality is that it would have been a massive ask, and it probably would have been a stupid move if he did do that.
To kind of start finishing this off on a lighter note, I always love to ask players going into this incredibly stressful game, what's something, whether you've thought about it or you think about it now, that when you look back on the game, a moment, a person, a challenge, whatever it is, that you're just really happy about, that you're happy you got to experience and you get to take home with you from Samoa?
That's a really, really good question. And it's really hard to isolate that into one particular person, place, or experience. I think it's probably being there and realizing how hard it is there, and realizing what little we need back home to actually live like a fulfilling, and I mean, this is getting a little bit philosophical, but it really is kind of like how little we need to live like a fulfilling and happy existence. I think, the social ties that I built there are still as strong as ever, with, a whole range of people. I mean, I caught up with Eileen and Ferris for lunch last week, and people would be thinking, like, what the hell are you doing after what happened to you? But I came away with a lot of friendships. But to kind of go back to your question, it was having that moment of I don't need all the stuff that that I have back home to be happy, and I really miss my family, and they are kind of the focal point in my life, and I can't wait to be home and to see them. So that's kind of yeah, probably a broader answer, but it is that that realization that I think I always had, that
Hmm.
certain things are important and certain things aren't, but it's
Hmm.
really kind of brought into focus when you're over there and like cold and tired and wet and hungry and all of that. So so yeah, that's probably my key takeaway.
That's good.
Charles, did you see that we did a cast assessment before the season started, and Nina and Tegwith, two of our Survivor Now podcast analysts, said you were their winner pick.
I
So
know,
do you
I
have a message
know.
for the two of them?
When I saw that, I was devastated because you both put so much faith in me, and I heard you talking about me in a really complimentary way. And yeah, obviously at that point, I knew how things were going, were going to go. But that being said, like, I mean, I think the game that I played, and a lot of it, you know, viewers didn't get to see, and you guys didn't get to see. Um, but I had a strategy at the outset. I wanted to get through day by day and play the long game. And I think going into that final tribal, like I was in a really good spot. I'm not saying that I could have won because, or that I would have won, because you don't know in Survivor, anything can kind of happen. But I do think that I was in a pretty good position, and in an alternate universe, maybe I would have been making you guys proud, but unfortunately not.
You still made us proud. Don't
I
worry
was
about
going to say,
it.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Definitely. I mean, listen, you are, I think, a prime candidate to go back and play again. Like you said, you were in
Oh
a very
yeah.
good position, but also you were like a challenge beast. We saw you win that tug of war. It led to that amazing, memorable moment that they used in all of the ad campaigns where you were like,
Yeah.
look me in the eyes. I loved it. I thought it was so funny. And then you also held the 2 barrels during that
Yeah.
one immunity challenge. I mean, that was incredible to watch. Would you go back if asked?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I think exiting the way that I did, I feel. I mean, a lot of people say that they've got unfinished business, but I feel like my time was definitely cut short. And so, if I had the opportunity to go back and do it all again, I would. And I don't know whether I'd have the same game plan. It might kind of slightly tweak or have to tweak given the circumstances. But yeah, hopefully I'll get the chance to go back and you know, actually execute that long game that I was planning through the whole time there.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles, it was amazing getting to talk to you. Congratulations that the
Thanks so
season is
much.
airing and that you went on this journey. Where can people find you online?
So Instagram, Charles Peter with 2 R's, and that's pretty much the main one.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Thank you all for joining this interview, and we will see you next time.